What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Ovalle Inspiración. I hope you guys are doing well, but let's get into this video right away. So this is video 3 out of 3. If you do not know what I'm talking about, you can click on that one video where I speak about renting, the pros and cons of renting. And then the second video, which is up here as well, you can I talk about the pros and cons of buying a home. Now, for this video, I will be focusing on is it wasting money to rent? Now, the reason why I want to talk about this is because, you know, not everybody owns a home. Many people, more people rent versus owning a home. And I'm sure that many people who rent, they want to buy a home. All right, but then there's some others who don't. And some people rent for a long time until they buy a home. Some people rent for 2 years and then they buy a home. It varies. It's different for everybody. But what I do not like is that there are many people who are in the real estate agency or people who already own homes. They pretty much put down others that rent. They will automatically say, oh, you're wasting all your money on renting and all those kind of things when you can be paying the same thing for a mortgage. And you know what? They're not necessarily wrong. All right? But the question arises, is it always wrong to rent? Is it wise to rent for a time? Or should you just get a home right away? So this is more of a yes and no question. All right, because now if we're talking about financially, long term, it is better to buy and own a home. Okay, but this is where the problem lies. There are many people that buy a home, then they become house poor. What do they mean? What do I mean by house poor? All right, they have a house, but they don't have enough of an emergency fund in case an emergency happens. So then they're gonna be broke, they're gonna have to use a credit card, they're gonna have to get a loan and be in debt on top of the mortgage debt. House poor also means that they're paying too much for the house and they don't have a lot of the money to do so. And they're pretty much like living on rice and beans to try to get by. They're paying too much property taxes. Pretty much they're paying too much of something in the house or for the house that they cannot afford. But remember, we have to think about anything can happen. The roof can collapse, a pipe can break down, a burst. You can lose your job, you can get into a car accident. And for many times, if you don't have an emergency fund, you're pretty much screwed. Okay? It's gonna be a lot difficult. You don't wanna go through a foreclosure and you have to sell your house. That is a big mental breakdown that you can have, right? But when it comes to renting an apartment or a house, for the time being, it is better most of the time. Why? Because, you know, a lot of people I see, they get married right away, and this is no shame, not throwing any shades on them. But a lot of people, they get married right away, and they get so excited. They want to buy a home. Again, who doesn't want to buy a home? I want to buy a home since the moment I got married, but I know that it was not possible right then and there, and we're not ready. So they buy a home, and they're only not even a year into their marriage. Now, some people put it off. It works out. Praise God. Hey, so be it. But I think it's just wise that when you get married, or even if you're not just getting married, I think you should wait. Wait a couple of years before you actually buy a home. Because you know what? A lot of people are just not ready to buy a home. Again, if you watch my other videos on the pros and cons of renting and the pros and cons of buying a home, you'll see what I'm talking about, right? It's super important to recognize those pros and cons, to recognize, man, all the responsibilities that you're going to have if you were to buy a home, mentally, physically, financially, emotionally. It's all of that. And you know what? I'm speaking from a perspective of a renter. I never bought a home. But I'm speaking also through the experience of many other people's stories that I've heard. And not only that, I lived in a house that my parents owned for a long time. So I got to see the responsibilities that my parents had, or mostly my father, because he did most, or if anything, all the manual labor in the house. But I also got to share some of those responsibilities with my father. For example, when I lived in New Jersey, in the wintertime, most likely we would get snow, and most likely we would get a blizzard. And we had a house, we had a nice backyard, a long driveway, and then the front of the house. And when it snows a lot, guess what? I have to help out with my father to shovel the snow away, starting from the front of the house, because that's where people walk, and we don't want anybody walking by and they slip and fall and they sue us. And then we have to do the driveway. We don't necessarily take everything out of the driveway. We just leave the middle piled up, unless it's a very crazy blizzard that we literally have to take everything out, and we have done that. And then the backyard, because we have cars that would go in the backyard or parked. So I got to share and I got to experience what it is to kind of own a house with my parents. So most people are not ready. For example, my wife and I, we're not ready to buy a house. And also we have a goal in mind, which is to become debt-free before buying a home. And wouldn't it be beautiful to become debt-free and finally you want to buy a home and not have to worry about any other debt except for the mortgage? Now, it's even better to have no mortgage debt, right? But that's not everybody's case. That's not realistic for most people, all right? But it is possible. But what I'm trying to say, guys, is that do not pressure anybody into buying a home. Yes, give them your opinions or even maybe some facts. Give them some things to think about, but never put them down if they don't want to rent. And I also encourage everybody that watches this video, if you are in debt, I hope that you will pay off of all of your debt before buying a home. All right, and then having a fully funded emergency fund, because if not, then anything can happen. The roof could collapse, the pipe can burst, and then you have to get a loan, or you have to find where you can get that money to get that fixed, on top of paying debt and owing everybody else. So with that being said, guys, renting is not always a bad idea, because you may not be ready to buy a home. So if you have any questions, leave a comment below, like and subscribe this video to this video, and share it, and we'll see you next time. Peace.